Well, I'm sure we've all been in this situation. You're in a meeting and you're having a really rigorous debate or really into the conversation about a particular feature, all the nitty gritty details. And then someone in the meeting says, wait. Let's take a step back. Why do they always say take a step back? What's the problem we're trying to solve again? Really? This is where you're going to add value? Well, like many things in product management, the theory is far easier to prescribe than it is to actually apply it in practice. And over the years, I feel like one of those cliche, easy one liners anyone can drop out there is something like start with the problem. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Focus on the problem, not the solution. Easier said than done. And in reality, is many things in product management as well. We look for binary approaches to everything. We think there is a systematic approach to everything, and I sometimes think we need to stop looking for this binary approach and look for more the nuances in everything. So today I wanted to look at the nuance of one of these statements of start with the problem. I actually think that in sometimes I feel like it's much easier to start with the solution. Sharif Mansell, and I've been doing product management at Atlassian for about 11 years now. And today I wanted to share with you some scenarios where I found it particularly helpful to actually start with the solution and not the problem. So let's jump into it. Three, three,
Three.
tree,
Three scenarios.
three scenarios where you might want to start with a solution. Scenario one. So, this one is when you're sort of conducting research. I found it really handy when you're doing research to actually keep an eye out with the solutions customers have built themselves, which they might not necessarily draw attention to. So, to explain this to you, I want to share with you a story. A few years ago, while we're doing qualitative research for a particular Confluence feature, we're sitting down with customers and getting them to show us their screens and the particular context in which they were trying to do something. And over time, we noticed a series of customers that were showing us something that looked a bit like this. No, this way, a bit like this. So they were showing us Confluence pages that had these colored stars, like red stars and green stars, or different. We didn't call them emoji back then. Different little icons, and then some a mention and some detail next to it. Now, bear in mind, the story is from about 2011, so cast your mind all the way back then. And we're doing a lot of research, and we noticed a pattern. Quite a few of these customers showing up these pages with different colored stars, and we started to ask them, "So, can you tell us what this is about?" And sometimes it'd be in the context of a meeting note or a project plan, and then we're talking about, oh, these are basically tasks or actions for the meeting. Someone needs to do something. The red means it's not done, and the green means it's done, or the smiley face means it's done or it's not done. Like that, they'd find a manual solution to the problem. Like it took us a while to realize this, but then ironically, that's not what we were looking for. And then back then, one of the engineers took the solution that customers were doing and said, well, have we ever thought about just putting a checkbox in the editor? A checkbox, like mind blown moment. In 2011, no real editors were doing this anywhere really. And so we're like, wait, we could put a checkbox and people could tick it and untick it, and that's like a task. That was a pretty big aha moment back then in 2011. This all started by doing the qualitative research first. And through the qualitative research, we could observe solutions that customers were doing in real life. And we stumbled across this. We weren't necessarily looking at this. Now, can you imagine if we had taken a more of a data-driven approach to this? Imagine if we were sitting behind some data consoles, Amplitude, Redash, looking at running some SQL queries or something. one could have concluded a very different story. You could have concluded that, well, a lot of people are using these red and yellow stars. We should make stars more prominent, or we should promote stars. But you didn't have the full context. And what we didn't realize is they were actually using those stars to solve a different problem. They just came up with their own solution to the problem. So the order of this is pretty important here. So we did a bit of qualitative research, and through observation, we identified a solution customers had in place, which they didn't necessarily want to call out to us, but we discovered it. We then take that solution, and what we did was actually sort of try to extrapolate how big of a problem this was. We would run queries and do surveys and maybe do a bit more quantitative now that we've established the why from the qualitative. By trying to sort of look at their solution and reverse engineer what they were trying to do. And then we'd iterate on the problem, and then, someone here came up with the solution of the checkboxes. A few years later, I came across a talk from a gentleman by the name of Simon Cross, who works at Facebook, product manager. I think he's still there. And he called this paving the cow path. Yes, as in cow path. This cow. Moo. Actually, this might be a bull because of the horns, but let's pretend it's a cow. That's the thing I could find in my daughter's bedroom. But yeah, someone called it paving the cow path. Moo, cow. Moo. Hey, everyone, say hi, cow. Moo, moo. Ee, ee. And I hadn't heard this term before, but he basically talks about finding solutions that customers already have today and productize them. And he actually tells a lot of stories at Facebook where features ended up being created because they paved the cow path. Everything from Facebook photos to even like your cover photo was done by observing customers changing photos a lot, and they sort of realized, hey, maybe we should build a way for someone to pin a photo on their homepage. This all started by observing customers with the solution first, and then kind of working out how to productize it and sort of reverse engineering the problem, and then making it better for customers. If you want to watch the talk, don't forget you can follow the link. Or you can't actually click on it. Well, maybe you can. Maybe I'll work that out. But not now. Finish watching the rest of the talk, and then you can check it out later. Go/cowpath. It's pretty good. So that's scenario one, looking at solutions while you're conducting research of what customers do manually, and sort of then reverse engineering the problem and seeing if you can come up with a better solution than what they came up with. So let's jump into scenario two, where you might want to start with a solution. In this case, it's when you're looking at creating a product strategy or exploring your product strategy. An old former general manager of Atlassian, Didier, used to always tell me that it's really easy to identify a good strategy, but it's super hard to articulate a good product strategy. And he defined a good product strategy as answering two key questions. Where do you play? And how do you win? Where do you play and how do you win? First part, where do you play, is really about the market and the landscape that you play in. The how do you win is about what unfair advantages do you have that is sustainable, that will make you differentiated in the long run. Now I want to focus on the second part of how do you win. A few years ago, I read the How Google Works book by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt. And he always talked about good strategy for them was involved looking at the solutions that they already had in place and thinking about what advantages they already have and what could make them sustainable. Technology advantages, assets, or unique beliefs that they had. He's an excerpt from the book. And when you start with the solutions, you can start thinking about, these are the assets we already have. How can we use them to our advantage? Specifically at Atlassian, what does that mean for you? Well, I think often for a lot of us product managers working on a particular product, you may need to zoom out of your bubble and think about what other assets do we have as a company that can help create moats or network effects to give us sustainable advantages. Some examples that come to mind, the Atlassian platform. Leveraging the power of the platform helps us cross-flow users between our products, helps remove a lot of R&D leverage from our product teams, and deliver unique solutions that span across multiple product boundaries. Whether you're working on DevOps or ITSM, you can use the platform to bridge user experiences between our products to solve particular customer problems. So you may want to look into there, see what you have with identity and the editor and media and all that kind of stuff. A second asset that we already have in place at Atlassian is our marketplace and our ecosystem of vendors. We have thousands of app vendors out there that can help extend our products in ways that we can't imagine, or maybe we don't have the capacity to do that. So if you're working a particular feature or problem area, you may want to look at the marketplace and ecosystem and help them extend the thing that you're doing to solve more customer problems than you anticipated. Or a third asset or a solution that we already have in place is our amazing partner network with all our partners. Our biz dev team does an amazing job of partnering with large tech companies to help form strategic partnerships. So you might want to reach out to them and see what you could do there as well. Or our channel distribution network, all the massive sales force we have that is indirect in many ways and sometimes direct. You can train them and equip them. These are all advantages that we have. There are strategics that have been working on for, if not decades, some of them, and so we should use them. So good strategy is thinking about where do you play, how do you win. To look at the how do you win part, you actually need to start with what solutions and assets and things do we already have in place, whether it be technical and process, and then think about how you can use those solutions to solve problems that maybe your customers did not anticipate they have, or will give you a sustainable advantage in the long term. The final scenario I find myself starting with a solution is when I'm trying to identify potential new opportunities we could go into. So I want you to cast your mind back to 2012. Confluence had just launched likes. Now, bear in mind, Facebook was the only other product that had this concept of a like. There was another product called FriendFeed back then, which I think was the original creator of the likes concept. But when you look at likes, we sort of have a fairly narrow solution, or very specific solution to a very narrow problem. Likes is a specific solution to close the loop on a comment, like get back to someone and just acknowledge it, or show that you like it. Now, I guess this particular point here is about if you change your framing of the solution and zoom out a bit, a very narrow solution, and zoom out a bit and broaden what you could do with that solution, and maybe try to abstract it out, if you like to use an engineering term, you might be able to open up the door for new opportunities. Fast forward a few years later from 2012, and Twitter had just launched Hearts. So this battle between likes and hearts was happening. And we inside Atlassian were wondering, should we also change our likes to hearts? Is it more emotive? Is it more descriptive? In fact, I'll let some of you check out this blog post here. It's a bit of entertaining, where we actually launched an internal experiment many years ago where we tried to change the likes to hearts. Guess what? It didn't happen without any controversy at all. No, it totally was controversial. We didn't end up doing it. Caused a bit of a flame war, a good popcorn value if you want to have a read of that blog post. But we sort of learned a few things during that time. We had discussions, well, what if you could post a little icon in response to any comment? Again, remember, reactions and emoji wasn't a thing back then. What? That's right, all you young people, you had to express yourself with words, not just like pictures. That was a thing, right? So reactions, shockara, reactions wasn't a thing back then, right? So we were like, well, what if we let someone put an icon, and any icon, you could do a thumbs up or a heart in response to a comment. When you zoom out a bit and try to widen its scope, you sort of realize there's lots of use cases for liking a comment. Here are some listed here, right? So you can like to celebrate, you can like to say thanks, you can like just to acknowledge a read receipt. I have someone on my team that likes all my stuff, and I feel great, and they're like, no, I don't like your stuff. I'm just like acknowledging I've read it. I don't think it's great. But there's lots of use cases here. So you take a solution, a very, very narrow solution to a very, I guess, specific problem, and loosen it and widen it. You may open up the doors for more teams to express themselves. Little did we know, were we sitting on what is now called reactions, and this big aha moment around reactions, and you can react with any emoji that you like. So start with a solution to a very narrow problem and broaden its scope. And you might be pleasantly surprised with the different opportunities you might uncover. In wrapping up, hopefully I've shared with you 3 possible scenarios where it might be totally cool to start with the solution and not the problem. Scenario number one, when you're conducting research, keep an eye out for those manual solutions customers are performing and see if you can pave the cow path, save them time, make them more effective or efficient at something, or improve the user experience to something that they might not even see as a problem. Scenario two, when you're exploring a product strategy, start by asking yourself, where do we play? How do we win? And for the how do we win part, have a look at around you at Atlassian. What unique and differentiating assets do we have, whether it be technological, a network, or anything really? You want to look for those 1+1=3 partnerships, whether it be a platform through our ecosystem, through our channel partners, etc. Find unique advantages that are sustainable, and a lot of what we have at Atlassian has been built up over the years, is actually probably not always in your product. And then lastly, scenario three, where you might want to start with a solution. Sometimes you want to take a specific solution you have to a problem and broaden its scope. And you never know, you might uncover new opportunities that you or your customers hadn't anticipated before. So that's it from me. I'd love to hear your thoughts from other examples where maybe you have found starting with a solution to actually be more effective than starting with the problem. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes it's totally fine to start with the solution and not the problem.